The following is a sports narrative special presentation.
And the pick is finally in. It's currently being brandished by some walkie-talkied individual, taking it up to the commissioner's podium. A big, humongous pick.
Now, to find out whose name is on that card, here is the commissioner, ready to make history.
With the first pick.
And welcome to episode 2 of the 2024 Draft Narrative Drafting Special. I am your host, Jeff Bowers, as we join you again for another fine little episode to talk some draft, our weekly draft show. If you're a little bit behind, want to catch up, the previous episode you can find at Abundant TV. It should be posted up there later today with my good friend Jared Alarde. But today we have another special guest. We have our other draft buddy who has joined alongside of us, and that is the great Darren Boyd, complete with his Miami Dolphins background. What's up, buddy?
Oh, the happy season's upon us. We got the combine coming up, and then before we know it, Detroit will be here.
It's absolutely true. It is absolutely true. So it is an exciting time. We're going to chop it up a little bit for you today and talk some draft, as that is what we will do each and every week, bring you some different topics. If you're new to the show, the format of this fun little thing is where basically each of us have 3 topics, and we just kind of go back and forth and, talk all things draft. So, as always, you can contact us. You see right there on the screen, at Sports Narrative for me on the X. And if you have your any Dolphins or draft questions, there is Mr. Boyd's at Darren Boyd 13 on the X as well. Of course, feel free to email us at thesportsnarrative@gmail.com, or you can find us also on youtube.com/thesportsnarrative. All the places, all the things. That's what we do. So, without further ado, we are going to chop this thing up a little bit. And I will let you start there, Mr. Boyd, as you're the new man on the list. What is topic number 1 for you?
Well, starting off this week is the biggest conundrum I've seen a franchise face in a long time, and that is a topic called Mr. Caleb Williams and the Bears with the number 1 overall pick. He did not have a good season last year. We started hearing some red flags coming into last year that persisted throughout the year, such as painting his fingernails with cuss words on him and crying in his mom's lap. If you're Ryan Pace, the Bears, do you hold on to Justin Fields, sell that first-round pick, you still pick at 9, get a Herschel Walker type of trade for him, or do you ride him out and ship off Fields for a second round and a 4th somewhere?
Man, that is the number 1 topic, man, and I think you absolutely nailed it. You know, it's funny, we did a whole draft show last week and we didn't even talk about it. So my thoughts on Caleb Williams are this, and it's something that we're going to debut here in a couple of weeks with my quarterback draft evaluation. I was just watching a guy on Instagram, a draft guy, and he was, going through his evaluations for quarterbacks. And, he's doing, hey, can he make all the throws? Can he go through progressions? Does he have the arm strength? Can he move around? Like all of that stuff, right? And, man, there was a time when I think that was the way we looked at quarterbacks, right? Like that would seem to be the thing. And if you had all the tools, and I think the most important part of that is you had all the tools and you had time to adjust to the pro game. Well, man, how long has it been since we let quarterbacks adjust to the pro game? I guess Pat Mahomes was the last one, right? Who got a full year to sit?
Yeah, Jordan Love, Pat Mahomes, that's about it.
And you know what? Jordan Love's a great example as well of a guy who literally sat, watched, adjusted to the game. However, do we think Caleb Williams is going to sit? Absolutely not. That dude is going right into the fire. So for me, and what we're going to do here is we're going to roll out a new version of this evaluation process, right? And what for me is it basically the way that it works is it's, obviously you got to have the mechanics, right? So you got to have the footwork, you got to have the arm strength, all of that stuff. Of course. Like those are still there. Mobility is important, but not as important as you think, right? Because as we've seen and still hold true to this day, a primarily running quarterback has still never won the Super Bowl. And until Lamar Jackson does, I imagine that will probably remain the case. So that it's a nice perk, but it's a perk, not a feature, right? Then you have, being able to run an offense, being able to process, not be a one read and run guy. And we've seen that out of Justin Fields, who obviously the Bears are considering moving on from. But the other two factors, I think, are the key ones for me, and that is adversity. How do you play when you're playing a superior team? Now, there are guys who go all the way through college who never play on a team that is inferior, right? Like you think of Tua, right? That Bama team was absolutely stacked. And, did he ever play a team? And you could even say a team that's on par with him, right? For example, when we, obviously we look at C.J. Stroud from last year. Dude, he dominated most of the Big Ten season, right? But when he played Michigan, which was a very good team, maybe not better, and Alabama, which was obviously, or not, not Alabama, I'm sorry, Georgia. When he played Georgia in the playoffs. And Georgia obviously being the better team, how did he perform? Well, he performed the best he ever had. And so is this a guy who rises to the occasion? So anyway, we're back to Caleb Williams. First of all, what are your thoughts on Caleb Williams? Like, if you're the Bears, would you draft that player? Knowing what you know right now.
Knowing what I know now, I would not. We've seen another example of him, too, where he refuses to get an agent. I know he has somebody advising him, but not an actual agent. And you and I know from the Shrine Bowl, a lot of the scouts in there are our ages, 40s, 50s. They're set in their ways. They don't view that as a favorable thing. They think you should have representation. So that's another thing you'd have to deal with. I know it worked out for Lamar Jackson, and he bet on himself and won. But I don't think Caleb Williams is the mentally strong as Lamar Jackson.
Man, I'm with you on that front as well. And I think that it's the intangibles and the other stuff that makes me nervous about it, right? So, saying all that, like I said, from the start, I'm a little bit of two minds on Caleb Williams. Because on the one hand, is he one of the most talented prospects we've seen in the last 10 years? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. The guy can make all the throws. He can control the game from the pocket. He can move around. He's amazingly accurate on the run. He has that instinct, right? He has pocket presence, so he's not back there just getting creamed, when he's trying to do stuff. And also, does he not take the easy plays at times, right? Is he a one read and dump guy, right? Obviously, we saw the, as you mentioned with the intangibles and all of the other off the field stuff, the maturity level. He's somewhere between, like, at his ceiling, if he hits the very, very top, man, he's going to be in that, maybe not at the Pat Mahomes level, but in that stratosphere, that Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson stratosphere, right? If he doesn't quite hit that and he hits kind of the mean, we're talking Kyler Murray. We're talking Justin Fields, right? Of a guy who can run around and make great plays, but can he be consistent? And then at the bottom end, I mean, we're talking like, Pat White, right? We're talking a complete. And actually,
we love you, Pat White.
Yeah, actually, the better comparison. I said that for you. Better comparison there might be a guy like Marcus Mariota, who, Marcus Mariota has been stuck around the league for 10 years. And also, no one's handing their team to Marcus Mariota, right? He can move around, he can make plays, but he's not the guy. And he came out of college very not immature as a person, but immature as a player. Having never called a play in a huddle his whole life. Okay, so all that being said, Caleb Williams is the number 1 pick. There is no question in my mind. I think the Bears are going to move on from Fields, and they're going to take Williams because the entice to the talent is too much. But is that the right choice? Man, I don't know. I think, seeing what they've done in offensive coordinator with the Bears and all of that stuff, oof, man, does it scare me. It is one of the more dicey first overall picks that we've seen in a long time. It's for a guy who's a no-doubter, right? Like we're not talking about guys like, oh, is it Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold? Like, that's not what we're talking about here. Like, we're talking about an absolutely no-doubt flag in the ground. This is the guy we're drafting, and we have 2 of those this year, which we haven't had those in quite a while. Him and Drake May. They're up on this tier for me, and then everyone else is kind of a step down. Yeah.
One thing with Caleb, too, is if they pull the trigger on him at 1 overall, that resets their quarterback clock. And let's be honest, Ryan Pace is on borrowed time.
No doubt.
So we may think about that as well. Like, let's go with Caleb. That's going to buy me, selfishly, another year or 2 to see how he develops versus if I roll with Fields and go all in and I'm sitting at home in January during the playoffs, I'm out the door.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, I think that is also the reason that you're taking Caleb over a guy like over keeping Fields, right? Because I think you want to reset your clock. You want to basically buy yourself time. To an owner, you're going to say, look, we just got this guy. He's a rookie. We're building around him, blah, blah, blah. And it's going to be a thing where, man, we see the wow plays. We see the magic out of Caleb Williams a couple of times a year, just like we did with Fields over the last couple of seasons, where, man, you see some play where he breaks off a run and goes 80 yards, or he makes this incredible throw, and you just go, that's the thing. We want that. But do you get that every week? And Bears fans know better than anybody that, like, the highlight package is not the whole game. The rest of the game looks like, oh, what are we doing here, right? So, yeah,
just
fascinating.
Like Bryce Young.
You know what? That's a good call, Vince Young, yeah. A fascinating topic that obviously we will discuss many, many more times this week. So we've talked now about the number 1 pick with Chicago, and we have talked last week. We talked a little bit about what the Patriots have to do at the 3rd pick, right? Well, I want to move a little bit more down the draft and talk about another team that I think is in a very pivotal position. And when we talk about pivot points in the draft, it's these positions where whatever they decide will really tip the balance in a lot of different ways, right? So that team for me is the Los Angeles Superchargers. And I think the Chargers sit in such a unique position where, look, we're going to have quarterbacks near the top and some wide receivers, right? We know that going in. And you have your Caleb Williams, Drake May, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, right? Somehow, some way, those 4 guys, maybe Jaden Daniels jumps in there, maybe J.J. McCarthy cups in there, more on that in a minute. Whatever the case may be, we are at either 2 wide receivers and 2 quarterbacks or 3 quarterbacks and a wide receiver. That seems to be set. So, now you're the Chargers. You're coming off a very down season. You have brand new Jim Harbaugh in the building. You've got Greg Roman coming in to bring in a run-based offense around Justin Herbert. You got to completely rebuild that defense after Brandon Staley's disaster. What the Chargers decide to do for me in this draft will dictate the next 10 picks. So, let me lay it out for you there, Darren, and then let you respond. So the Chargers could, sitting there, it looks as though, and in fact, let me pull up a little bit of that Los Angeles Superchargers depth chart here, as there we are on the screen. This is our courtesy of our good friends there at Our Lads. So you see a lot of orange. Orange are free agent players, a lot of orange on that defensive line, and that's not even taking into account Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, both of which they would like to trade if they very well could. So let me pull this up here, cover up that ad. Ta-da! So you're looking at a complete overhaul on the defensive line. You're looking at losing a couple of pieces in the secondary. Offensively, that offensive line you've been adding to for years. You know, you've drafted Rashawn Slater, number one. You've drafted what was their other draft pick that got hurt last year?
Drawing a blank.
Man, me too. It'll come to me. Anyway, you've got you got Corey Linsley, who sounds like he's going to retire. You've got Mike Williams, who's a potential cap cut, who's a good player, just has been hurt too much. You've got Keenan Allen, who's long in the tooth. You need everything, right? You need everything but Justin Herbert. Obviously, Eckler, your top 2 running backs also are free agents. So you need everything. So where the Chargers decide to go, to me, is what makes this draft. I think they could, as options, auction off the number 5 pick, right? There could be, if 3 quarterbacks go early, then you're sitting just ahead of the Giants. You know the Giants want a wide receiver. That could be Malik Neighbors. Does somebody jump up to take the second best wide receiver? Or could one of the top quarterbacks be there? Or maybe people say this is the last spot for a quarterback, right? 3 quarterbacks have gone. There's one more. I don't have another quarterback until the middle of the first, into the first round with Bo Nix. I got to make this move right now. Do I make that move? Or do you take, do you just try to build and get the best skill position possible? Do you say, we're going to take a wide receiver, Malik Neighbors, we're going to take Brock Bowers, we're going to, supplement that type of thing. So I think the trade down option is huge, because you are ahead of the Giants team that also is desperate for wide receiver and potentially quarterback. You could take offensive line and keep building on that thing because it's Jim Harbaugh, and they're going to run the snot out of the ball with Greg Roman as their OC. A fascinating pick for me. So what do you think of the Chargers, Mr. Boyd, and what do you think if you're the GM of the LA Chargers, what are you doing?
Opposite of Ryan Pace, I'm sitting in the catbird seat, like you said, and I hate agreeing with you. It irks me as you're a Jets fan, and we hate to agree, but that 5 spot is the juicy spot of the draft. As you said, someone can come up and get a quarterback. I personally would not take, just because it's you, I wouldn't take as Bowers at 5, because traditionally tight ends, no matter how generational he appears to be, and we've seen him dominate, that's just not a good value pick at 5 for me. So I would be you and try to auction that thing off, maybe get down to 10 or 12. Then we could reevaluate Bowers or another wide receiver. This wide receiver class goes on for days and days anyway. It's really all does. Sizzle.
And that's another element to it, right? So, 2 points there. One, it is an interesting point about Brock Bowers. Now, it is also Jim Harbaugh, and tell me Jim Harbaugh doesn't want tight ends. What was the tight end that
Schoonmaker?
No. What was the tight end that the Niners drafted years ago under Harbaugh? You know what I'm talking
Kittle?
about? Davis.
Oh, Vernon Davis.
Vernon Davis. There it is. The highest at the time, the highest picked ever tight end until obviously we had Kyle Pitts, which, as you mentioned, has not exactly worked out for the old Falcons. More on them in a minute too. So, Brock Bowers is a whole different conversation, and one that we will definitely have on a future show to talk about.
You just want to buy his jersey?
I really do. Obviously it's my illegitimate son. So, however, so you have that element, but you were talking about the wide receivers, and there's a ton of really solid wide receivers in that early second round, and we're talking Ladd McConkey, we're talking Xavier Worthy, we're talking Adonai Mitchell. There's a ton of great guys there, so you don't have to take the wide receiver at 6 if you want another position. To me, all of this just screams that they're going to trade down if they can find the trade partner, and the question is who comes up and for what.
The big mystery, indeed.
It really is, and obviously that is a topic we will discuss a little bit more as we go along as well. Topic number 2 for you, Mr. Boyd. You are up.
Well, we talked a little bit about the sizzle. I was going to talk about the steak. The sizzle is all the wide receivers and the playmakers out there that people are familiar with because they click on ESPN, if anybody still watches ESPN, for a few minutes and kind of gets their overview of the first round whenever Mel Kiper's 17.0 mock draft comes out. The stake in this draft is the trenches, and that's how you always build Super Bowl contending teams, through the trenches. So offensive line, you know I'm a trench dork. This is the deepest offensive line class I can ever recall. I mean, you've got tackles, starting caliber tackles in the 3rd round in this draft, which is unheard of.
You absolutely do. In fact, we're going to pull up the Dane Brugler Athletic Top 100 as you see there on your screen. And so just to run it down very quickly for everyone, just going off of this, Joe Alt at 6, Olu Fashanu at 9, J.C. Latham at 13, Fuaga at 16, Armarius Mims at 17, Tyler Guyton at 18, and that's first round, right? So what is that, 5 guys? Just tackles in the first round. That's not counting.
There could easily be 7.
I was going to say, and then if we go with the interior O-line, so if we go with centers, you got Jackson Powers Johnson, which please someone call him Stonewall Jackson. That would be amazing. Graham Barton.
He is my man crush.
Yeah, both of those definitely first-round picks, and I think we've seen those guys rise up even more. And then Troy Fautanu from Washington, guard, tackle. I think guard would probably be his best position, but I think he has that position flex.
Versatility.
You gotta love it. So, man, that's 8. That's a quarter of the first round, and that's just ranked. We forgot Jordan Morgan, who they have listed as a guard. Most people have him playing tackle. So actually, that's 9. That's more than a quarter of the first round could be offensive linemen. We haven't seen that in so long, and and then that's not even counting if we get some reaches, if we get some people getting desperate. Man, that is something, as you say, it's going to be a lot of fun to get a lot of these offensive linemen in the league and see how they do. And then even into rounds 2 and 3, I think for me, the most of the offensive line position kind of starts to run out around pick 100. So I think at that point, you're not going to be getting a guy who can step in and start. But up until that point, I look all the way down Christian Mahogany out of Boston College at 85. I see dudes that could absolutely walk in the door and potentially, even Blake Fisher out of Notre Dame, I think is a 2nd, 3rd round pick. Probably a better guard than tackle, but man, I mean, there's just so many guys that could step into this, and so where I think we'll see that is a lot of in day 2, a lot of jockeying for position as those offensive linemen go off the board quickly.
I agree 100%. That's twice I've agreed with you. This has got to stop.
All right, knock that off. Yes, and man, when was the last time we had a center class that has been this good? I mean, we got 3 top centers. We didn't mention Zach Frazier out of West Virginia, who I have seen in some first round mocks. So yeah, that is going to be a fun time. By the way, here's the old center class there.
Yeah, for the ball watchers out there that just study the speed merchants and wide receivers and like I talked to some Dolphins fans on the X. And they're like, oh, we need a 3rd wide receiver. I'm like, you're going to pass up at 21, a decade, maybe 12 years starting caliber superstar center to get a 3rd wide receiver who's going to get 40 catches. Makes no sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah. And look, like the average fan, look, they think about fantasy football, right? They think about the guys who catch the ball and run and do all of that stuff. Of course. But that's not, and as you said, that is the sizzle, right? That is what the average fan base gets fired up about when they get some guy who runs a sub 4.4 and can jump out of the gym and all of that stuff. But and by the way, the NFL Combine, we'll be streaming live here from Casa de Bowers with my good friend Jared Alardi. We'll have it up on the big screen right there next to me, and we're going to broadcast this thing live and kind of walk you through what we're seeing in the Combine, even if we can't actually show you the Combine. So come watch the Combine with us next Saturday, starting at noon Central. So that'd be 1 p.m. Eastern time from Indianapolis, and you can watch that live. So, yeah, man, great topic. We'll definitely positional dive a little bit more as we go along. All right, for my topic number 2, Mr. Boyd, we're going to keep with the theme of individual teams. And we talked about the Chargers being one of those teams that is in a unique position. Now I'm going to transition into another team that I think is in a very unique position, and that is picking at the number 8 spot, the Atlanta Falcons. I am intrigued to see what the Falcons are going to do with this whole thing. Obviously they fire Arthur Smith. New regime in town. You've got a team that was, looked like they were ready to hand the reins to Desmond Ridder and gave him every opportunity to win that job, and that did not go well. Enough that you got Arthur Smith run out of town as he was misusing all of the weapons. I mean, you've got Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. You've got a ton of talent on that team. You're rebuilding a defense, but you've got cap space. You got $41 million in cap space plus. You've got some big-time free agents. Obviously, you got to figure out what you're going to do with Grady Jarrett. You got to, you've got some holes along the offensive line. In fact, let me pull up the good old R lads here as well for your Atlanta Falcons.
Smith should be in jail for being criminally underused Bijan Robinson all year. And then he heard Bijan come out this week and go, yeah, if I was used right, I'm getting 2,000 yards.
And you know what? I don't doubt it. Do you doubt it?
No.
Absolutely not. All right, so let's pull up the there's the good old R lads draft guide. Put myself right there over that guy talking. So yeah, Calais Campbell, but you're pretty good on defense, and you're losing Bud Dupree. You need an edge rusher, obviously. Secondary comes back intact. The offensive line comes back intact. You're obviously need something outside of Drake London at wide receiver. Is that whole position is wide open. But yeah, man, I mean, that is going to be just one fascinating thing to look at. So again, Mr. Boyd, I make you the general manager of the Atlanta Falcons, and it is time for you to say, what are you going to do at quarterback? Let me give you options. You could trade, let's say, a couple of second-round picks, both this year and next, and get Justin Fields. You could sit at 8 and pray that Jaden Daniels or J.J. McCarthy falls into your lap. Or you could move up the board, try to get one of the top quarterbacks if you need to make that move. Or you could go for a vet. You could go for Kirk Cousins. We've heard a lot of talk about that. You could go for Russell Wilson. And then draft a quarterback a little bit later. Obviously, Zach Robinson, the new offensive coordinator under head coach Raheem Morris, coming from that Bengals system. So they're definitely going to ask a lot of their quarterback. Man, what's your play?
Well, I guess the theory would be, what do they want to do? Do they want to win now? Then I'm going out and putting a big offer in for Kirk Cousins. If they're still kind of in this nebulous, keep building around a young quarterback, I would not come up from 8 to because it'll take next year's first to wherever you go just to get one of these quarterbacks. And I've stated that I am not I don't believe any of these guys are franchise quarterbacks. At least I'm not willing to hand them over the keys to my franchise. So for me, it's either stay at 8, trade down again if somebody gives me a nice offer, or get the veteran.
Interesting.
But I think if a coach wants to come in and win right away, then he's got to go the veteran route.
That's interesting. Raheem Morris, I think, he's got a little bit of leash, I believe, in, being a brand new head coach. I feel like they will want to go young. Now, as you said, could they go get a Kirk Cousins on a 2-year stopgap and still believe in Desmond Ridder? Do they still believe in Desmond Ridder? That's a fascinating question. Do you go get a guy like
$1 million question?
Several $1 million question, right? Do you go get a guy like Justin Fields and say, okay, we're gonna get 1 year with him to see, and then we got to pay this guy, man? Like for real, like This guy's got to get paid, or we're going to end up looking silly. Also a possibility there.
Yeah, and the franchise is going to probably be franchise tag for Fields probably around 30, 35 million.
Yeah.
So either way, he's getting paid. If you're a quarterback and you get in a franchise, even though nobody likes it, you're getting guaranteed money. You're getting paid.
Yeah, no question. No question. Or like, or as we have talked about, do you stay where you are in the draft? Do you move up in the draft? Because think about it, and this goes right back to the Chargers discussion. So let's say Caleb Williams, Drake May, 1-2. Boom, boom, right? Jaden Daniels goes 3 to the Patriots. Now we're coming down the board. We got some wide receivers come off, and now we get to that pivotal Chargers pick at 5, or the Giants pick at 6. What if the Giants say, you know what, we want to get someone to replace Daniel Jones. We're gonna draft J.J. McCarthy at 6, and now you're the Falcons, and you're like, what do we do now? Are we going to bail out and trade back and then try to get Bo Nix? Are we going to take Bo Nix in the top 10? Cause that seems ridiculous. Do you look at Michael Penix, which again would be way high for them, but as we know, quarterbacks rise on draft night. Man, it is a fascinating position. And then, as you say, like the quarterback determines your future. So if you get jumped and then you're taking Michael Penix at 8 and he gets hurt, bye. We'll see you next time you try to get a head coaching job, right? Woo.
Yeah, but you're on the streets. You and I've been hearing a lot of stuff about Penix that the media loves him, but the scouting community, with all of his red flags and injuries, say I wouldn't touch him before the second round.
You are 100%.
Unless the team comes up in the late 30s or early 30s, and gets the advantage of the 5th-year option.
And that's what I think will happen. I think Bo Nix will be the consolation prize for not getting one of the top 4. And then I think that Michael Penix is one of those where, if the Chiefs want to trade out, if the Niners want to trade out at 32, 31, something like that, I think somebody jumps up and takes Penix there, because the drop from those guys down to the next level, where we're talking Spencer Rattler, Jordan Travis, Michael Pratt from Tulane, like that jump is large. We're talking 3rd-round picks there. So is it possible that we see 6 quarterbacks in the first round and not 1 quarterback in the second? 100%. 100% think that could happen. Man, that's going to be fun. So, like I said, I think I expect the Falcons to come out and be aggressive. I expect that they're not going to let themselves be sitting with the 8th pick and not have a quarterback in-house, whoever that is, right? And again, maybe you go get Russell Wilson for a song and you say, okay, he's our stopgap, and then we try to see what's there. I trust me, I know. I'm just saying. Somebody's going to do it, right?
Sure.
Exactly. All right. That is 2 very solid topics here on the Draft Narrative Special. Topic number 3 for you, Mr. Boyd.
Well, I was going to deviate off the draft for the final topic and just talk, which no one wants to hear about, salary cap. Salary cap talk puts people to sleep, but I'll make it short and sweet, because a lot of people, especially in my Dolphins fandom base, have anxiety because, we're $41 million. Stephen Ross can stroke 5 checks in 5 minutes and get about $30 million under the cap. Not a problem. You saw him making moves yesterday. Don't go to bed, fans, stressed about the salary cap. It is monopoly money. It doesn't mean a darn thing.
So you were looking again, courtesy of our friends at Sport Track, at the current salary cap availability. As we had mentioned yesterday, the cap has gone up $30 million, and we knew that was coming with the Amazon money and all of that stuff that was gonna be jumping way up the board. So we knew that was coming. I think it surprised a little bit of the media how much it jumped, but obviously the cap jumps, people are going to spend money right now. This
was their makeup year too for the COVID year, when they told all the players, hey, we got to keep the cap level and don't get any really try to keep your contracts in line, and we're going to reward you in 2024, and you're going to see some serious mega deals coming down when the tampering period starts.
No doubt. As you look at teams with the most cap space, the Washington Commanders sitting on $96 million. The Patriots right behind them at 86, Tennessee, Chicago, Indianapolis, and then Houston you know, the benefit of the rookie quarterback scale. Houston having themselves quite a bit of money. Detroit also up there as teams that were contending. Then we scroll down to the bottom of the screen where the teams without cap space. The Buffalo Bills at a negative $41 million. They're going to have to make some real tough decisions this offseason, as we expect. You know, people maybe like Stephon Diggs. Yep, I'll just say Diggs moves on. The Saints always in cap hell at $36 million, and again 4 moves and they'll be fine. There's your Dolphins at $24 million under the cap, or over the cap. And again, a couple of moves, a couple of restructures, everything's fine. Now, it will cost them some players. You know, they're going to lose Robert Hunt. We've already seen them cut Emmanuel Ogbah in the last yesterday. So, like, they're going to lose some guys. But
and Xavier Howard.
Yep. The Chargers down there.
Now, Howard's designated June 1st cut, so you get the cap savings immediately when a league year starts, but you're not allowed to spend the cap $15 million you save from Howard until after June 1st. So you could see a guy like if the Dolphins have a pound on the table to draft a center. Connor Williams is still rehabbing. His agent's like, we're in no hurry to sign.
Yeah.
Then I could see a guy like Connor Williams going off to the Dolphins after June 1st for $8 or $9 million a year, and it gives them room to sign all their draft picks. So that's just kind of the moves as a forward-thinking organization. You're like, okay, we're good. I'm not worried about this cap thing.
100%. Then the Chargers and the Broncos down there at the bottom. So, that hurts. Hurts for that. So, I think, the salary cap is a thing that I think people freak out about and unnecessarily, but also it is a factor, but not as much of a factor as you think it would be, right? Like again, the way they've done things. And in fact, I had my good friend Jim Miner the other day was asking me about a player that got cut, and he said, this player got cut, but he's going to be on their salary cap for the next 2 years. And I said, yeah, that's a thing called void years. And it's a new little salary cap trick that they've brought in where they basically say your contract voids at this point, but the rest of the money we owe you, we're going to have 2 phantom years of contract beyond that where we'll pay this out. I mean, hey, magical accounting. Gotta love it. It's better than the government. All right. Let's see. Topic number 3, my final topic of the day here on the Draft Narrative Special Episode 2. Again, find us any draft questions you have. You want to ask about your team, want to ask about a player, position group, you want to hear a story from the old draft days, hit me up at Sports Narrative on X. I am happy to respond to all of my messages, or find me on email at thesportsnarrative at gmail. The sportsnarrative at gmail.com. All right. Topic number 3, Mr. Boyd. I'm going to do something that is near and dear to your heart, and
talking about punters. Yes.
Yeah, we're going to talk punters, my man. We're going to talk some punters. Nope.
Dang it.
We are going to talk about prop bets. The NFL draft prop bets that are always so much fun. Again, purely for entertainment purposes only. We don't condone any form of gambling. And if you have a problem, seek help. All right. That being said, let's look at our good friends at Bovada. As we have picks. Here's the things you can pick right now. Now these will change, but right now you can pick. You can place down a few M&Ms on the number 1 pick, the number 2 pick, the number 3 pick, Mr. Irrelevant, the top 3 picks in exact order, which, by the way, I have won a few M&Ms on the past on, and then a couple of players that we'll get to in just a minute. Here's what I found interesting. Obviously, Caleb Williams is the overwhelming favorite. Number 1, you're not going to make any money making that particular wager, right? Again, number 2, Drake May, overwhelmingly favorite. Jaden Daniels, a little bit in there as well, and, then everything else falls away. Number 3 is where I think things got a little interesting for me, because obviously we've got the 2 quarterbacks, and then you've got Marvin Harrison Jr., in case the Patriots and or whatever team is trading up there decides to go away from quarterback. Number 4 on that list is J.J. McCarthy. And this is where I'm really as I really start to look down on this list with the top 3 pick thing, right? So the overwhelming favorite to pick the exact 3 picks in order is Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jane Daniels at a plus 190, right? And then second on that list is Caleb Williams, Drake May, Marvin Harrison Jr., as most mock drafts that you will find have it exactly that way, right? But interestingly enough, as actually, let me pull that up for everyone there, as you can pull up the old Bovada account. You're getting a plus 1,000, which is pretty low odds for Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., and then Drake May, right? Thinking that perhaps Washington makes the trade for Justin Fields and then takes wide receiver, something to that effect. This one over here, also at a plus 1,000. Caleb Williams, Drake May, and J.J. McCarthy going third. My contention to you, my friend, is that is it possible J.J. McCarthy goes ahead of Jaden Daniels?
I can't see that happening. It just, my football brain won't allow that to happen.
Yeah, but I think it's very interesting. So I was doing a pretty deep dive, and by the way, The Athletic has a great deep dive on J.J. McCarthy on their site here recently by Ted Nguyen, which I know Ted. Ted's a good dude. I knew him back when he was doing nothing, kind of like we're doing. McCarthy was never the guy at Michigan, right? He was always, a complementary piece. He was, it was a run-based offense where he's just there moving the ball and doing his thing, right? As the season went on, he got better with progressions. He got better at making those decisions, making some good throws. Now, does he occasionally misread something? Yes. Is he still being told what read is coming? Yes, because this is the nature of the college game. It doesn't mean he can't make that read. It just means he never has, right? He has someone doing it for him. So, but I think what's going to be interesting is if you're in a room, and this, honestly, this is the craziest thing about the draft process, I think that's out there. If you're in a room sitting at a conference table, as we are right here, and a young man walks in through that door, and he is 6'3", 200 pounds, and has just all the looks you could want, and he has that presence. I experienced this for the very first time in my very first draft in person, which was the Cam Newton draft. Going into the process, I was like, man, I don't know. There's so many question marks. There's off-field question marks. He only really had 1 year of big-time football, and granted, that was great, but, he looks like more of an athlete than a quarterback, and I just don't know. Right? By the way, choosing between him and Blaine Gabbert, I think we all know how that worked out. But I had questions. And then...
One's still in the league.
Well, that's a good point. And then he comes walking down the aisle at Radio City Music Hall, and I saw him, and you knew where he was no matter where you, if you were just sitting in the room, and he was way back behind you in the corner, you just knew where he was. He had that presence. And you're like, yeah, that's the guy. Absolutely, that's the guy. Because Blaine Gabbert came through later, and yeah, it was like, oh, hey, there's that guy. I'll tell you, I had that experience, too, with Kenny Pickett at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. Kenny Pickett comes walking right in front of my table, and I was like, oh, hey, I think that's Kenny Pickett, right? None of that presence, that gravitas, that thing, right? That leader of men, as it were. I think McCarthy, from all reports, McCarthy has that. Now, does Jaden Daniels have that? I don't know. I haven't seen it yet, and it's one of the things I'm most fascinated to see him at the combine. What does he measure in at? What is he going to weigh? Because one of the things is when he was at Arizona, he probably played at 170 pounds. I mean, he was tiny. He's got little stick legs, But obviously, Jaden Daniels, incredibly athletic. He can make incredible throws. Led college football in yards per pass attempt. He's got that on tape, but does he have it in real life? And that's, I think, the question that will be answered. Is when that kid walks into your room, do you feel it? I think, honestly, J.J. McCarthy is the perfect quarterback for a team that runs a scheme like your Miami Dolphins, that runs that Shanahan offense. Because what McCarthy's superpower is one, being able to move around a little bit and deal with pressure, and two, absolutely pinpoint throws on the crosses, hitting a guy in stride. If I was the Dolphins, would I consider, hey, I'll trade you Tua for J.J. McCarthy and move up? Yeah, I would consider it. I don't know if I'd do it, but I'd think about it.
This is why you're a Jets fan.
Let's remember who your owner loves. I'm just saying. Just saying.
He loves his Michigan.
And Michigan, that's the champion right there. Just saying. If it happens, you owe me a Coke.
Deal. I'll buy you 2 Cokes.
Yeah, you'll need something in yours, I think, if that happens.
No doubt.
Good times. Okay, so let's just keep an eye out for that. That's something that, like I said, there's not a lot of things when you look at draft prop bets. There's very few times where you can really, have good odds, make some money on something like that. But this might be one where if the third quarterback off the board, if you could find that, the third quarterback off the board being J.J. McCarthy and not Jaden Daniels, obviously the combine I think is going to determine a lot of this, because the medicals, the height, weight stuff, how big is their hands, which matters in how many fumbles they have, that type of thing. I think that's interesting. Okay, so your thoughts, McCarthy over Daniels, or whatever you want to talk about.
I just don't see that happening. I think Daniels is more versatile, and like you said, when McCarthy, he never had a chance. Like, he was never either given a chance to go out there and throw for 400 yards because Harbaugh was going to run the ball 70 times a game. Jaden Daniels gives you versatility. You can get out and run a little bit. And McCarthy did a little bit, but it was not pretty to watch. That's why I go with I like your first two, and then I'd go with Daniels.
And I mean, I think you're right, and I think that is the prevailing thought. But I do know, as you said, the general public is much higher on Michael Penix than the NFL is. I know the NFL is much higher on J.J. McCarthy than the general public. I will contend this one. I think maybe we can find some consensus on. J.J. McCarthy goes in the top 10 in this draft. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I think with the desperation of quarterback, with all of that, I think what's up there, I think somebody, and also look at the teams that are quarterback needy, right? You've got the Vikings at 11, potentially needing a quarterback. The Broncos at 12, which again, it's funny. I saw somebody today, in that write-up with Ted Nguyen and on The Athletic, he was saying that the Broncos are the perfect team for J.J. McCarthy to run the Sean Payton offense, which I wildly disagree with. In fact, if anything, Jaden Daniels is a better fit for that, because Jaden Daniels is a Drew Brees kind of clone, right? Like, little guy, can move around, got a cannon arm, could drop back 20 yards like Drew Brees used to and chuck it like it's nothing. To me, Jaden Daniels is a better fit for the Broncos than McCarthy. I mean, I know what he's trying to say there, but like I said, I would love McCarthy to land in a Shanahan-type offense, which, by the way, the Vikings run under Kevin O'Connell. So I think that would be ideal. Then you look, the Raiders at 13, they obviously need something. The Rams need a succession plan behind Matt Stafford. That's something that they may be looking at 19. The Steelers, obviously, at 20. A topic for another week, perhaps, is where does Justin Fields end? We will tease that for next week's show, something that will come up during our live Combine broadcast. But, I think, all of those teams sitting 11, 12, 13, all needing quarterbacks. Somebody's jumping up to get it. We know Atlanta at 8, potentially. We know the Giants maybe at 6. Someone will move up in there, especially when you consider the Bears at 9 with a second first-round pick, could trade back and get more picks. there's obviously, all the way up to the Patriots could trade back. Heck, anybody could trade back. The Titans at 7, need offensive line desperately. Well, guess what? They may be sitting there at 7 with the best offensive linemen in the draft, with Joe Alt and Olu Fashanu and Talisi Fuaga all sitting there, all available for them. Drop back a couple of spots, drop down to 11, still get the guy they want. Man, it's going to be fun. I love the draft, as you well know, and that's why we do this thing, right?
It is the season.
It is the season. All right. Final shot, extra point. What's your final parting thought of all that we've discussed today, my friend?
Well, I agree with you. Looking forward to get the measurables on the guys at the combine coming up, especially the quarterbacks. That's always a good. Now, of course, you can work out. Say if you did play around 170, you could put some beef on and work out and come in there at 190 and then take the weight right back off. But that's what I always like to see is naked men running around and showcasing their talents, just like the baseball uniforms.
Oh, yeah, man. Whew. See-through baseball uniforms. Love that. Man, you just made a boxing reference, a baseball reference. Look at Mr. Sports there. Look at this guy. Look at that guy right there.
Cross-reference.
Hit him up at Darren Boyd 13 on the X. So, for the great Darren Boyd, for all of the draft prospects we have discussed, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Draft Narrative, and we will talk to you again next week, live Draft Combine on the 24 Media and Abundant TV. Until then, be safe, be well, and have a great week.